All right, this is today's e-learning worksheet, the multi-step equations worksheet, and I thought I'd help you out by doing a few of the problems just to give you guys some examples to use. And most of these are going to be relatively familiar problems. You can see on this front side, none of the problems have variables on either both sides, just one side. But there's a lot of simplifying that you can do. For example, in number 8 there, zoom in on number 8, we can distribute the negative 3 to both sides, or both terms in the parentheses, I should say. And negative 3 times 4r is negative 12r. And negative 3 times negative 8 is positive 24, equals negative 36. And then we can subtract 24 from both sides, because that's how you get rid of a positive 24, is put a negative 24 beneath it. That gives us negative 12r equals, and then here we have same sign, so we're going to keep the sign and add to get negative 60. And then we can divide by negative 12. And that's going to give us r equals positive 5. Two negatives make a positive. Okay, so r equals 5. But there's actually another way you could do example 8. And what you could do is, you'll notice the entire left side of the equation is being multiplied by negative 3. The entire left side. It's being distributed to the 4r and the negative 8 term. So what you could do is, if the entire left side is being divided by 3, then you could take the, or you could actually divide both sides by negative 3. You could divide both the left and the right side, the entire side, by negative 3. So if I rewrite this as negative 3 parentheses 4r minus 8 equals negative 36, we can divide both sides by negative 3. And what that does is just cancels out, see the fact, so that you don't have to distribute by negative 3, because that negative 3 is being multiplied to basically the entire side. But then you have to divide the other side by negative 3, and that gives us 4r minus 8 equals positive 12. Which, again, the numbers are smaller, so that's kind of nice. We would still have the same number of steps. We would add 8 to both sides, and that would give us 4r equals 20. And then you would divide by 4 on both sides, and you'd get r equal to 5. So there's two ways that you can solve a problem like that, is if the entire left side or right side, if the entire side is being multiplied by a number, you can divide that entire side by that number, and what that does is that cancels out the distributing and means that we don't have to do that anymore. So two ways that you can do the same problem. It does not matter which way you do it. All right, so flip it over and look at number 11. Number 11, you can see the entire left side is being divided by negative 3, but this is an example of a time where that wouldn't work. So there's a reason that in my rules for solving equations, I haven't said, you divide both sides. It does say distribute, but what we did in the last problem doesn't work for this one, because on the right side of the equation, you can't just divide that by negative 3. Negative 3 does not go into 14. It wouldn't make any sense to do that. So it's only a certain type of problem, like the problems on the front side, where that method of dividing the entire side by a number actually works out. Here, there's no advantage to doing that, so we're just going to go ahead and distribute like we've been doing. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. And negative 3 times positive 6 is, negative 18r equals 14 minus r. I've got a variable on both sides of the equation. It would make more sense for me to go ahead and add these 18r's to both sides. That's going to keep my variable term positive. Positive 17r. And then since I moved my variable to the right side, I need to move my constant over to the left side. So I need to move this 14 over to the other side by subtracting 14, which gives me negative 17. And then I can divide both sides by 17 to get r by itself, and r equals negative 1. All right, so let's look at number 20. Number 20 is one of the longer problems, but I told you that just because a problem is long does not mean it's actually hard. It just means there's a lot that we can simplify here. So starting on the left side of the equation, one of the things I can simplify is distributing this positive 10. I'm going to put a box around that so you know it's a positive 10. Remember, the sign in front of the number stays with that number. So I can distribute this positive 10 to both of the numbers in the parentheses here, which gives me negative 11. Just copying that down, plus 10p, and then 10 times 10 is 100. And I've just distributed that side of the equation. And then over here on the right side, it's not a positive 5, it's a negative 5. Remember, we talked about this. Make sure you include that negative sign when you distribute, otherwise it'll throw your answer off. So I know that equals 4, and then negative 5 times 2 is negative 10p. And negative 5 times 11 is negative 55. So that was part of the simplifying step that we can do to both sides of the equation. But we can also combine our like terms. On the left side, we've got a negative 10 and a positive 100. So 10p, and then those two will combine to give us a positive 81. Or 89, I should say, not 81, 89. And that's because they have different signs. So I'm subtracting them because they have different signs. And then on the right side of the equation, we can combine this 4 with this negative 55. And now they also have different signs. So we're going to subtract them. And that's going to give us negative 51. Keep the sign of the larger number. Then we can move our variable to one side. It would make more sense to go ahead and add 10p to both sides, because it'll get rid of the negative 10p on this side, and it'll make it a positive 20p on the left side. And if I'm moving my variable over to the left, then I need to move my constant over to the right, and I'm going to subtract 89 to get rid of a positive 89. So I'm subtracting, same signs here, so I'm going to keep the sign and add. That means this is going to be negative, let's see, that makes 10, carry the 1. 140, so negative 140, and then we're going to divide both sides by 20, and we finally get p by itself, and that equals negative 7. So it's not that it took a huge amount of steps. All I had to do was simplify, and when you simplify, you're going to get, no matter what, you're going to get at most a variable and a constant term on one side, and a variable and a constant term on the other side. So if you simplify as much as you can, it'll never be longer than that equation right there. And that's just, again, moving the variable to one side, moving the constant to the other side, and solving. So let me know if you have any questions over this, and this is due on Wednesday.